Welcome to A Mind for Life. We are in the cosmology of being, and we are in the trichotomy of identity. Now remember, from before, we took a branch off of this and we went into mind. And you can look at the last video to see how that unfolded and why we took this branch to expand us into a larger, much larger space in the universe. So we're going to continue now with the three attributes. Okay, the three attributes. And before we get into that, let me say a couple things like I almost always do in these videos. A Mind for Life is here for freedom. A Mind for Life is here offering spiritual philosophical technology so that you can live your truth out here in this world, so that you can be who you really are. A Mind for Life is not a religious channel. It's not a New Age channel. Okay, so A Mind for Life is here offering perspectives that you can use to open up. I like this word, feelizing and even realizing the universe. That's what A Mind for Life is about. So, and I'm going to talk about this in detail later. Old and new logic, what I call old and new logic. All right. We are on new logic for the most part on this channel. This channel is meant to open you up to your inner truth. The things that are said on this channel are not intellectual things. They're not intellectual things. They're not things where you say, that makes sense, so it's true. Now, I've said this from the beginning, that this is not logical positivism here. So, meaning that we're not here to make sense so that you accept it as true. That's not what this channel is about. We're not trying to get you to actually accept anything on this channel. This channel is for you. It's to open up, to see more, to be more, okay? So I'm going to get into that later, old versus new logic. But just keep in mind that some of the things you hear, they may sound like they're logical and it makes sense, but really what's going on is it's designed to open you up to larger truths, to the larger universe, as opposed to making sense to a finite mind. Yeah, it's logical, it makes sense. Okay, it's true. No, that's not what A Mind for Life is about. Okay, guys, so I just wanted to kind of put that out there in the beginning of these videos. Okay, so we're on the three attributes. The first attribute that we're going to talk about is God's omnipresence. That the fact that God is present in all. Okay, so let's go back to our initial idea here, that mind is being, God is being, God is mind, or you can say mind is God. All right. Now, how does God focus? You know, in our last video, we talked about supernatural focus. Now, let's piggyback off that. How does God focus? Does God focus with eyes and ears? Does God focus with thought? Is God a bigger, stronger, more intelligent man? Does God focus like we do? The answer is this. God focuses God's self with and as being. God focuses itself, God's self, with and as being. God focuses itself, God's self, into a beingness. This is how God focuses. God focuses with being. Now, let me explain this in a way that would really make it a little clearer, because we are in an abstract, to some abstract phase of the cosmology where we're laying a lot of the foundation here. I'm going to make it a little clearer. We can focus ourselves into a beingness as well. And this will make you understand. Just say someone wants to become a doctor. They are not being a doctor. They may go to the doctor. They may talk to the doctor, listen to the doctor. They may actually get the doctor to do certain things and feel the doctor, but they are not being that doctor or even a doctor. Now, to become a doctor means that you're being a doctor. Now, to become a doctor means you have focused yourself into becoming and being that. How? Through school, through lab work, through interactions with others. Over time, that individual has focused themselves into being a doctor. So now they, through focus of themselves into being that, they can say their name and put ND after it. Why? Because they are being a doctor. All right. So that's the real important thing when it comes to this idea that God is present in everything, because God has focused God's self into the beingness of that. So let's get into presence. Now, what is this idea of presence? What it really is presence? Presence is a state of fact of being or existing in a thing, in a place. Presence is the state or fact of being or existing within a place or thing. That's the root definition of presence. And this is simple to illustrate too. Let's take the color red. You see red. You look at a fire truck, it's red. You look at a stop sign, it's red. You look at a jacket, it's red. You look at a leaf on a tree, it's red. You are noticing the presence of red in different objects in different places. And that's what presence is. Presence is the state of existing or being in a place or thing. So we can identify red in so many things as being present in the fire truck, as being present in the stop sign, the jacket, the leaf. Now, but what is omnipresence? Omni means all. So that means this, that whatever it is present in every single thing that is, in every place, in every time, actually outside of condition. It's present everywhere. God is omnipresent because, and this is it, God has focused God's self into the beingness of all that is. So we can say this, that being is existence, and we know that being is existence. We can also say that presence is existence. Presence is existence, because if we go back to our definition, presence is a state of fact of being in a place or thing. So we know that presence is existence. So now being is existence. So now listen to that. Being is existence. Being is presence. Being is presence. Now God is the beingness of all that is. God is the beingness of all that is. God has focused God's self into the beingness of all that is. That means that God is all presence, because presence is being. God is all presence. That means God is present in all, because God is the being of everything that is. So omnipresence really means this, that God has focused God's self into the being of all that is. And therefore God is present in all that is, because God is the being of all that is. Now, we are not omnipresent. We can focus ourselves into a finite number of things or places at once. A person can be a doctor, then they can be a mom or a father, they can be a golfer, They can be in one place at a time, really physically in one place at a time. Okay, so the first attribute is omnipresence. So now we understand that God is all presence because God is all being. And presence is a state of fact of existing in a place or a thing. But omnipresence is existing in every place and everything. And God is the beingness of all that is. God is all present. God is omnipresent. Okay, so that's omnipresence. The second attribute we're going to get to is omniscience. All right, omniscience. Okay, now we're on the second attribute. The second attribute is omniscience. And let's define omniscience. Omniscience is just knowing everything. Omniscience is knowing all knowing. Remember, omni is all knowing. All right. Now, remember that God is being. God is the being of all that is. All right. Let's define omniscience in terms of beingness now. Now, remember, God is focused God's self into a beingness. God is aware of itself. God is self-aware of God's self. So God is focused God's self into a beingness. God is aware of itself. So God is aware that it is being whatever it has focused itself into being. And I use it and God interchangeably. Some people have emotional attachments to this, like how could God be an it? But let's just go with this. So God has focused God's self into a beingness because God focuses with being. God is self-aware. So God is aware that it is being whatever it is being, a rock, a human, a tree, etc. Now, the rock or the thing itself, the human is aware that it is being. It is aware. It has self-awareness because God is the being of that which it has focused itself into. And God is self-aware. So what this means is this. Everything that is has self-awareness because the being of that it is God being that, and God has self-awareness. So the thing is aware of itself as being, which is God's awareness of God's self. Okay, so rewind the video if you need to and listen. These words that are coming down, guys, are to open up your heart space. This is a revealed type of knowing on this channel. So it's not that I'm giving you logical things so you can validate it and say, oh yeah, that's true, that makes sense. No. This is the sheet being pulled off. A lot of things are really right there for us. A lot of truths are right there in our faces. So the question is this: are rocks and chairs aware? Are rocks and chairs aware that they are? And the answer is absolutely yes. Rocks and chairs are aware. A rock is aware of itself as being what it is, the rock, which is God's self-awareness as being the isness of the rock. Let me say that again. Y'all got to. A rock is aware of itself as being a rock, which is the self-awareness of God as being the isness, the beingness of the rock. And this goes for organic and inorganic as well. Whether or not it contains carbon-hydrogen bonds has nothing to do with it being or not being. Carbon monoxide, I'm just giving you an example. Carbon monoxide has carbon, but it's considered an inorganic substance, but it is still being. What is it still being? It is still being carbon monoxide. So anything that is being is existing is the isness of God being that. And God is aware of God's self. So that thing, whatever it is being, is aware that it is being what it is being. Now, see, we get tripped up with this. We get tripped up with thinking, well, the rock isn't saying that it's being, so it's not being. And that's not the case. Let's go to this here. Let's ask this question. How do we know that God is self-aware? How do we know this? How do we know that God is self-aware? Could it be possible that God is being something and not aware that it's being something? There's a way to demonstrate that God is self-aware. Now, if we can demonstrate that God is self-aware in one case, one instance, that means that everything is self-aware because God is the beingness of all that is being. One case can we demonstrate that God is self-aware. And yes, I've got it. It's this. I am aware that I am. I am aware that I am being. I am, therefore, I am aware. I am being, and I'm aware of this. I'm aware that I'm being. Now, this awareness that I'm being is God's awareness of itself, of God's self, because God is the being of all that is. So I am aware that I'm being. I am, therefore I am aware. That's the one case that all we have to do is demonstrate that, like I just demonstrated it to you. Now, let's not go down the wrong path with this. I am not saying I'm capital G. I'm little g. I'm in the image of. I'm a individuation of, or an expression of, in the image of God. So, I am, and I am aware, or I am, because I can say I am aware. And that being that's saying I am aware is the isness, is the beingness of God, as God has focused itself into being this particular person. So now we get tripped up, and I wanted to get back into this. We get tripped up this way. We get tripped up thinking, oh, the rock can't tell me it's being. Oh, the tree can't tell me that it's being a tree, so therefore it's not self-aware. But the problem is this: a rock is not a human. A tree is not a human. We cannot paste or compare our version of self-awareness because we are being a human onto a rock. Our beingness is not the beingness of the rock. And beingness is self-awareness. You see? So this moves us into a whole different idea of understanding how God knows everything. Because God is self-aware and God is the beingness of all that is. And we can show that by just simply saying, I am. I am. I can say I am being. That is the awareness of God being this. And if God is all that is, the beingness of all that is, then God is self-aware of being all that is. All right. So now, lastly, on this point of omniscience, there are moments, and I've had a few of these myself, where we can tap into the mind of God, so to speak, and we can get a sense of oneness, that everything is alive, everything has consciousness. Even inanimate objects like this wall has a character or consciousness to it. And I've experienced that a couple of times in my life. That is tapping into the oneness, the beingness of all that is. All right, but that's a different subject, but I did want to mention that because that can also help to enlighten this idea of omniscience. Okay, so we're going to get into the third aspect now of, or the third attribute of mind or God, and that is omnipotence. Okay, so now we're on the third attribute. Okay, the third attribute of mind or God is omnipotence. And let's just do some definitions here. Omni, we know omni means all. Now, power, or let's say potency or potent, is having power. Is having power. Power is the ability to do something. And omnipotent is having the ability of all power, or having all power, being able to do anything, being all powerful. So omni is everything. Potent is having power. Power is the ability to do something. Omnipotent is the ability to do everything. All right, right there in a nutshell. Now, I'm going to say this. It takes power to be. To exist takes power. To exist takes power. To be takes power. Anything that is being takes power to be what it is being. It's able to be itself, and it is being itself. That goes for the life and non-life, or organic and inorganic, as we said before. So anything that is being has the ability to be, and it is able to be. It is being itself. Now, to understand this idea of being, because sometimes the truth is just right here, all right? It's just like right there for us. Now, to understand this idea of being is this. When we take any verb and we put ing onto it, attach ing, ing turns it into a noun that signifies an action or a process, or a subject doing an action or process. Let me say that again. So if we take any verb and we add ing to it, that signifies, it turns into a noun, and it signifies an action or a process. So if we take skate and we put ing to it, that means skating. Someone is skating. There's an action or process that's happening. Now let's take be. Being. Being is the action or process of existing. Being is the action or process of existing. That takes power. Any action or process takes power. Think of electricity. Electricity is the power that powers your air conditioner, for example. Electricity is the power that may power your car. It's the power that creates the action or process. Okay, so being is the action or process of existing. And we know that God is the being of all that is. So God and being takes power. So God is the power, has all power of all that is. It's really that simple. Now you may say, well, what about a rock? Does a rock need power to be? It's just sitting there. Yes, form itself requires power to maintain its shape and form. Okay, so that goes for anything that is being. So let me recap this. Being is the action or process of existing. Okay? Now, any process or action requires power. Power is the ability to do something. To do what? To do the action. To do the process. God is being. God is the beingness, the isness of all that is. God, you could almost say God is the action or process of existing of all that is too. But being is the action or process of existing. And an action or process requires power, like your air conditioner, your car, or your TV. God is therefore all action, all process. That's another way to see it as well. Okay, so anything that is being requires power to be, and God is all powerful because God is the being of all that is. All right, so that concludes the three attributes. Okay, so the three attributes were omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence. All right, those are three attributes of God. And as God is mind, those are the three attributes of mind. Those are the three attributes of being. Okay, so we're gonna, in the next video, we're gonna move on over to the refractivity of mind. Okay, but this was a really essential part of it, guys, because just to understand the attributes of God, which we're talking about the attributes of mind as well, is very insightful. And all of this information I'm giving you is to open up here, not here. This may come later, but really it's a revealing. It's a revealing. It's a feelizing. It's a revelation. It's a revealing. So when you hear the words I'm giving in these videos, this is to open you up as opposed to get your validation as being true or false. Okay, I'm going to come back to that because that's so important. Old versus new logic. All right, so that's it for this video. Thanks for coming to A Mindful Life. Peace out.